1:15 p.m. And it's my pleasure to chair another session entitled "The New Finds from the Excavations Museum of Collections II." And I have the pleasure to invite our first speaker for this session, Iva Kaić, who works in the Department of Archaeology of Philosophical Faculty of the University of Zagreb. And Iva, the chair is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello to all our colleagues, and I would like to say thank you to the organizers of this beautiful conference. Today I will present you a little piece of my PhD work on the glyptic collection of the Archaeological Museum in Zagreb, which consists, I would like to show you this a little group of small convex chrome chalcedonies from one particular site, Siscia. Now a little bit about the glyptic collection of the Archaeological Museum in Zagreb itself. It consists of more than 400 gems, which were only partially published, often without photographs or drawings. And first they were described like in descriptive catalog of 127 engraved gems, which were by then acquired. That was published by Franjo Majksner in 1881. And since then, the collection was periodically published, mostly according to the type of iconographic motifs on the gems, but it was never entirely published and never with a complete collection with photographs. And that was part of my PhD work, which is now, of course, it was finished more than 7 years ago, but the book will be published, I hope, soon. Why this glyptic collection of Archaeological Museum in Zagreb is so important? Because it's the second biggest glyptic collection in Croatia. This collection of Archaeological Museum in Split, which numbers more than 200 pieces. And Zagreb collection with more than 400 pieces is the second. It's 2,000 pieces is Split. And another important feature of this collection is that most of the gems have a recorded place of their provenance. Only for 17% of the gems from the collection, we don't know where they came from. And that is mostly Dalmatia and Pannonia Superior, the sites from Dalmatia and Pannonia Superior, a little less Lower Pannonia and Maesia. So that's the most important thing. And one site which pops up is site of Siscia. I would like to say for the beginning that from Western Pannonia, the largest number of gems comes from Carnuntum, from which we know more than 1,300 pieces of gems. And from the area of Eastern Pannonia, the largest number of gems with preserved site are kept in the Hungarian National Museum, where out of 346 gems, 98 of them were found at various sites of Hungary. So we have more recorded sites in Zagreb collection. And as I have already said, in our collection, we have 175 gems from the area of Pannonia, and the largest number of them are from the Upper Pannonia, 136 of them, and from them, 134 come from Sisak or Siscia alone. So it is quite obvious to say here that Sisak, due to the lack of systematic publication of glyptic material, is actually not recognized in the literature as a site rich in glyptic finds, and it is actually almost unknown as in the glyptic world. As for the dating, the greatest number of gems from Siscia are dated in the 1st century AD, and we also have many of them preserved in iron rings, 66 of them, and 3 in bronze rings, which is also very important for the datation, and that also puts them rings and intaglios into the course of 1st century AD. A little more about Siscia. Sisak is a town in northern Croatia. You can see it here on a map. And this is a reconstruction of how Siscia looked like. As I said, statistical data shows that the largest number of gems from Sisak from Zagreb collection date back to the 1st century AD. And as I said, most of the rings belong to the same period. And it is actually the period of gradual urbanization of Siscia, during which the earliest wooden architecture from the middle of the 1st century AD began to be replaced by masonry construction, which became the building standard in Flavian period. And Siscia was intensively urbanized during the reign of Emperor Vespasian, when it acquired the status of a colony. And the city, which was located on the left bank of the river Kupa, developed economically primarily due to its strategic importance. And the most developed branch of Siscia was metallurgy, which was largely based on the supply of iron from mines in northwestern Bosnia. So we have attested local bronze fibulae workshops like Axisa fibula and so on in Siscia. And that was probably established for the needs of army, and it was developed from a military workshop into the urban workshop center. The Roman army entered the area of today's Sisak for the first time in 156 BC, and then when Romans tried to conquer a native settlement of Segestica, and during the war with the Dalmatians, Romans probably besieged Segestica in 119 BC. This Celtic stronghold was finally conquered in 35 BC after Octavian's 30-day siege of that city, during which a significant number of Roman army was mobilized. After that, Segestica disappears from the sources. We find only the mention of Siscia. And we must also mention a large number of legions under Tiberius' command that merged into Siscia area during the large Battonian uprising revolt from 6 to 9 AD. Although no traces of the legionary camp have been discovered so far in Siscia, garrison had to be stationed there even after the end of that uprising in 9 AD. And it is assumed that the 9th Hispanic Legion was stationed in Siscia and that it remained in the city until 45 AD at the latest. And after that, only auxiliary units probably remained in Siscia. And during the reign of Emperor Trajan, it was a further decline in the military importance of Siscia. But it is not surprising that we have such a large number of gems from Siscia dated to the 1st century AD, which corresponds to this Romanization of that area. And I would like to show you this little collection of so-called convex chrome chalcedonis, which are a relatively rare group of gems. They are known also as prasios and plasmas in literature, and they were generally dated to the 1st century AD. This dating was determined by the motifs depicted on them and the forms of the rings in which they were inserted, and that mostly belongs to the 1st century AD. Convex green chrome chalcedonis often depict motifs derived from the late Hellenistic and Augustan traditions, such as well-known sculptures and cult statues and sacroidyllic scenes. Mrs. Chiesa singled out the convex-shaped chrome chalcedonis into a separate workshop in Aquileia, and which operated in Aquileia at the beginning of the 1st century AD, actually from the Augustan period to the middle of the 1st century AD. And along with Aquileia, the scholar connects this convex-shaped chrome chalcedonis again with glyptic workshops in Rome. Also, Marianne Mask and Kleibrink places this group of stones into her classicizing style of the 1st century AD. And here I would like to point to the well-known paper of Gertrude Platz-Horster, who brings the most extensive analysis of this group of engraved gems, which would call that material chrome chalcedonis. And it originates from the mines in central Anatolia in Turkey, and this is this connection with the Eastern Mediterranean. And it's stated that these engraved gems were probably manufactured in, for most part, in central Italy. And they are also well known for rather small dimensions of them and of rings in which they were found. which corresponds like young women or children's rings. These gems were found the biggest number in Berlin collection. Then we have them in Carnuntum, which is very important for Siscia, that's Pannonia. Also in Gaul, we must mention a site of Alon Le Saunier, published by Elena, which has the biggest number at one site of these convex ground chalcedonies, 24 of them, and of course finds from Britain. And in Siscia, or in Archaeological Museum in Zagreb glyptic collection from Siscia, we have among these 134 gems, we have 13 convex chrome chalcedonies, or convex green stones, which I put into this group. Out of 13 of them, 8 are mounted in iron rings, and they're mostly dated to the 1st century AD. And this was the second choice of precious stone in Siscia. First was of course carnelian. And furthermore, we have 13 glass gems, which obviously imitate these convex chrome chalcedonies, out of which 5 were mounted in iron rings. And now I would like to quickly show you that material. Here you can see a ring with the image of a bust of Apollo, with his head to the left and red, and a laurel branch behind his shoulders. And most of these, all of these gems are stray finds acquired as practically the whole collection in Zagreb during 19th and 20th century. And almost all of Sisak gems were acquired during the dredging of the Kupa river bed. And this was also found in the Kupa river. And we have the classification of rings according to Henkel, and ring and intaglio dated to the 1st century AD. Next is chrome chalcedony portraying engraved with the centaur Chiron and Achilles. You can see them here, and little Achilles is naked and he holds a lyra. And this was also from the Kupa river, and you can see the small dimensions of the stone, and it is also dated to the 1st century AD. Next are two engraved gems depicting the warriors. The right one could also depict god Mars. As you can see, this one is not as well preserved as the first one. Again, small dimensions, and they're dated to the first century AD and first half of the 2nd century AD, according to the ring shape. Then we have the image of Reaper. We saw similar gems yesterday, I believe, and this one is also from the Kupa river, representing Reaper reaping the crop, and here also it is shown in front of a basket with crops in front of him, and it is dated to the 1st century AD, according both intaglio and the ring, and it is a little bigger. Then we have a well-known subject from this group of gems, that is Venus Victrix, leaning on a column with a helmet, and this one is dated, unfortunately it is broken, chipped off on this upper part, also from Kupa river, and is dated to the 1st and 2nd century AD. Then we have standard Victoria, dated to the 1st and 2nd century AD, chipped on the bottom. And this interesting Medhe, preserved in an iron ring, mounted in an iron ring, and also dated to the 1st century AD and first half of 2nd century AD, with this typical iconography of Medhe with a little plate. Then also a typical iconographic repertoire of sacro-idyllic scenes. Also this convex green chalcedony preserved in an iron ring and dated to the 1st century and beginning of the 2nd century AD. And this very nice bust of a young woman without a ring, dated to the 1st century AD, also from the Kupa River, and rather damaged image, damaged engraved gem showing Capricorn, clenched hands and ears of wheat, and both ring and intaglio are dated to the 1st century AD. Then again, two bovines, this idyllic scene showing two bovines and a little tree behind them, and the basket full of crops and fruits is dated to the 2nd half of 1st century BC and 1st century AD. And ring, iron ring with engraved gem, engraved with goat and 2 ears of wheat in front of the goat. After these chalcedonies, I would like to show you also this another group of gems which imitate them, glass gems from the Siscia, and you can see they're also preserved in iron rings. And here you can see they're not very well preserved, but we can see the iconography, like this bust of Apollo, unfortunately damaged. They're also convex. This is here we can see Mercury, and a very interesting and rare iconography of Mercury and Hercules, which is not, I think there is one piece in Nijmegen collection, which is the direct parallel for this iconography. Then we have another subjects like Cupid burning butterfly, well-known subject on gems, and again, one almost not finished warrior. And then not so well preserved motifs or glass gems showing two figures, maybe two male figures, and one female figure, possibly Minerva. And these are not very easily, we cannot easily see what is on them, but we can see busts, probably female bust with helmet, and here image of Victoria. And two very interesting pieces, Fortuna and Victoria, on this rather damaged glass gem. And again, Mete, this is a beautifully done green glass gem. And male bust, you will not see it very well on this photograph. And here we can see multiple symbols, dolphins and trident and cornucopia. I wanted to show you these glass gems. I didn't find so many parallels for this shape of glass gems, but I somehow recognized hands, maybe I'm wrong, in these two pieces. This is black glass, but this is also from Siscia, and they are to me rather similar. Of course, that this doesn't point to the glass gems, don't point to the glyptic workshop, but I just wanted to say that I see the same hands, and I see them in these two pieces, although this is chrome chalcedony from unknown site, but it is again green convex chrome chalcedony, and it shows to me some similarities with this green glass mete from Siscia. And I would like to conclude that this is a rare group of gems in the Roman world, but 13 of them are found in Siscia, so they obviously show that it was a fashion in Siscia. And this other group of green glass convex gems testifies to the popularity of that type in Siscia. From where did these gems come to Siscia? As we have already heard today, from travelers who came, traders, artisans who came with the Roman army. These testify to this strong Romanization of the Siscia during the 1st century AD. And although the main workshops are obviously central Italy, we can also point to the Aquileia as the natural and the closest connection and road connection of Aquileia Siscia, but also with Carnuntum, also road connected. And we have on other Siscian gems many examples which are pretty similar to those from Carnuntum. So I wanted to show you this group and to point out that Siscia should be put or marked on this map of sites where this group, this rare small group of green convex chalcedonies was found. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you for your very interesting presentation showing us the collection of the museum in Zagreb. There are a couple of suggestions by Professor Ardivan in the comments, and there is also a question by Karina Weiss. Why?
Okay, I don't see anything, but okay.
But I read them. I read a question.
Please, you read.
Why are so many gems found in the river Cooper? Were there offerings, or did they get into the river by inundation, etc.?
Probably by inundation and etc. I think, because it was the dredging of the river where we found them, and it was not, I think, the same as it is today as it was in the antiquity. It was a very swampy area.
Okay, there is another, there are a couple more questions. I see Claudia Wagner probably.
Martin. Go on. Yes, this is fascinating, and what it reminds me of is that when I was doing my PhD, the Professor Jocelyn Toynbee, who was the great figure in British archaeology, she looked at what I was doing about the gems from Bath, which contained quite a number of chrome chalcedonies, and said, these seem to be all about the good things of life. That group, of course, from Bath is all Flavian as well. Mm-hmm. And so many of these look as though they are. And of course, the Roman army brought with them a whole lot of women and children. And these were, many of them, as we say, were surely worn by women. And they show, in many cases, the lighter side of Roman life. But they really are a very graphic and wonderful little group.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is one more question, but just please answer quickly.
Yes, I will.
Because we are over time.
Short in time.
Yeah, it's from Andrzej Biernacki. Are the glass gems produced locally or from other workshops?
I forgot to say that we have evidence of glass production in Siscia. We have a glass furnace and we have raw glass found. And we know that glass was produced there, but of course, that was from the end of the 1st century and beginning of the 2nd century AD. We can think of that, but we don't have any strong proof, but we can think in that direction.
So there is no any analysis of the glass?
No,
no. Not yet. Okay, thank you. Thank you
very much.
And now I have the pleasure to invite Elena Streinu and Dan Pîrvulescu from the Municipal Museum in Bucharest, Romania, for a presentation.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to present the collection we are currently working on. I will start with a few words about the collection because it's something we have just began to research and study. The Maria and George Severeanu collection consists of over 3,000 artifacts that were gathered at the beginning of the 20th century. And later on, they were donated to the Bucharest Municipal Museum by George Severeanu himself, the owner, who was also the first director of this museum. He was not only a collector, he was also someone interested in exhibiting whatever he purchased or found. And some of the finds he even bought on site. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the 20th century, the laws were not as clear and they were quite blurry when it comes to, well, we could call it robbing, but it's not quite that, but it was a different understanding of collections, as we all know. So we will present the Roman gems, Roman gems from our collection. We have tried to put them together according to certain iconographical themes and patterns. Unfortunately, most of these pieces don't have any place of origin, no. But once we started working on the collection and on all the categories of artifacts, we have come to find that most of them originate from the Black Sea area. Some were even purchased from other collectors who also were interested in purchasing items from the Black Sea space. And as we can see, we even have some from the eastern provinces. So the museum opened just a few years ago, and now it displays a large part of the collection. We are talking here about Greek vessels, about Greek and Roman adornments, and a very varied category of objects. But with the gems, a very interesting piece that also has an importance as directly related to the family of the donor is what we call now the Severeanu necklace. This was made at the beginning of the 20th century in a Paris workshop. And all of these 44, there are 44 gems that are both Greek and Roman that were mounted in this golden necklace, and it was preserved as such until today, and it is displayed as such today. There are also other gems that are individualized. They have not been mounted, or at least the metal has not been preserved to modern times. And there are some that are still mounted in rings, and we will see them in the following slides. But starting with the Severeanu necklace, we will focus here, of course, mostly on the Roman gems. The first category of pieces we would like to emphasize are the two cameos that we have that have been determined to be depictions of Caesar and Agrippa, and then the other two, that one is possibly Caracalla, and the second only has the two letters pointing out to an Augusta, possibly Livia. We would also like to take the opportunity to say that we are working with two other specialists. One is a specialist in RTI technology from the National Institute for Heritage that is helping us see different details in order to properly process and decipher all of these small pieces. And the other is an epigraphist who is also very efficient in helping us determine some forgeries. The other category, which is of course very vast, and it's found in most collections all over the world, is that of the gods. So we have the most numerous depictions are that of Fortuna. So Fortuna is depicted in 5 gems. One from the Severeanu necklace, 2 are individually. We have no idea in what kind of adornment they were initially mounted in. And but the most interesting, in my opinion, is the one that is currently in the circular ring, the golden circular ring, because it depicts Fortuna. The depiction is quite schematic, but the Fortuna is in the middle. She is flanked by the 2 Dioscuri. This has been interpreted as that kind of a scene. The Dioscuri, they are quite rare in depictions in our part of the Roman Empire, now very rare also in the Danubian provinces. But we did find an analogy not on a gemstone, but on a sarcophagus from Siscia, which relates a little bit to the previous presentation. The sarcophagus was dated to the 2nd, 3rd centuries AD, and it also represents Fortuna aside and the same iconographical theme with the Dioscuri. And the explanation that we have come to find for this association is that the goddess Fortuna Tyche is sometimes associated, or was associated with the moon, thus with Selene, and of course then with the Dioscuri. The last depiction is that of Fortuna, which is this time is encased in an iron ring. We do not have many examples that survive until today of this of iron rings, or with or without gems. The following depictions are that of Minerva, and one with of Venus Victrix. Again, the Venus depicted here with military icons surrounding it. But I would like to draw your attention to the central piece, which is a depiction of Hecate in tree form, as usually. The piece is gray. We have not performed an analysis yet on the gem to identify the type of stone that has been used in the depiction. But on the reverse, it has an inscription and the depiction of a hand, and possibly here another letter, possibly another C. The issue is that the epigraphist colleague that is working with us in trying to make sense of these pieces, he states that the inscription itself is not proper Greek. It is not quite correct. For instance, the H should have been replaced with replaced with an X. It does not mean something per se. It doesn't make any sense. Then again, which could be an indicator that this particular piece is a reproduction. However, the fact that this piece is made from a gray stone is, in our opinion, associated with the idea of sorcery. Hecate, of course, is the goddess that is most often associated with sorcery and necromancy and ghosts. And also from ancient texts, and we know that the color gray is sometimes also associated with magic. Like, for instance, the lead curse tablets. And this again could be one of the reason why this type of stone was chosen for this depiction of Hecate. The following, the next gems we have here three different depictions of Jupiter, which are, well, the same. It follows the same iconographical pattern, but it also it seems to suggest that they all come from nearby workshops, from nearby. The inspiration seems to be the same in the case of all of the gems, although they are made from different types of stones. One of them is encased in the ring and it's very difficult to analyze. The other two are individual, and we are hoping to perform further analysis to see for missing details that are now very difficult to notice. For instance, the possibility that on the lower case of the second gem, there could be a small inscription. In the same category of representations of deities, we have Mars, Mercury, and Dionysus. Here we sneaked in a much earlier piece, that of Dionysus, here in the right upper case, because we do not have a strict representation of this god from the Roman period. We only have gems that allude to the cult of Dionysus. For instance, the dancing satyr with the tears, and this pan being chased by a goat. Here we have a very interesting representation, because we have taken the Archaeae and we have found that there are, of course, many other gems with a depiction of Venus holding out Eros. In this case, it is Mars, because we have no indication that this could be Venus holding out Eros, which is alluding to the relationship between the two gods, Mars and Venus. Just like Venus before in one gemstone was depicted with military insignia, this time Mars is depicted with a reference to his one-time partner. Mercury, of course, follows the classic depictions of the god. There are not, unfortunately, we cannot see if there are other inscriptions. The verse does not seem to hold any inscriptions, but it is unlikely that we will be able to see the verse anytime soon. One of the most interesting pieces and in the collections are those of Eros. We have seen Eros for the first time depicted together with Mars, but now we see him depicted alone, or as a pair in the last gemstone. The first one and the second one, they both have represent the exact same scene. It represents Eros holding out Psyche in the shape of a butterfly and holding a torch. This is a direct relation to the myth of Eros and Psyche. And from papyri, we do know that this kind of gemstones with Eros, and of course sometimes directly related with the depiction of Psyche as a butterfly, they were used in magical practices. For instance, there are certain gemstones that are inscribed on the back or have longer or shorter inscriptions that, if according to the text, if you would just put them in your mouth and just recite the inscription, then you would obtain the love of your desire. These ones, the ones in our collection, unfortunately, they are not inscribed, but they are quite rare. For instance, we only know of two other in present-day Romania. Of course, I'm referring here on this side. One is in the custody of the Romanian Academy in their treasury, and the other one is the only one which actually has a place of discovery. It comes from the military fort at Mycia. It is about to be published with the proper context, but it's extremely similar to the first representation in our collection. The last very interesting iconographical aspect that we would like to emphasize here is that of the Gorgon. So we have 4 depictions of Medusa in our collection. 3 of them are part of gems that were mounted in the Severeanu necklace. We have no idea how they were mounted previously. And we have one that is part of a double ring. Again, we do not have the other part of the ring, so we do not know what the Gorgon was associated with, or whether it was a double gemstone with the same depiction. So it was Christopher Faraone who first made a clear relation between this wearing the Gorgon on Roman jewelry, and pointed out to this wonderful portrait from the Fayum, from the Fayum paintings, that seems to depict such a sign, the Gorgon, being used in jewelry. So it's although we do have in our collection, and where there are many other depictions known that seem to have been applied on different kinds of objects, like boxes or other wooden or metal cases. This one's here, now we know that this one was definitely used on a ring, and we do have the possibility that some of them were actually used as adornments for the body, as a protection sign, because the Gorgon has been, since Greek period up to the Roman time, seen as a sign of protection. These ones here are just a few of the items we have not yet classified. Some of them are earlier, but we are trying to classify them accordingly and try to figure out as many analogies as possible. This is why it is extremely important for us that we have had the opportunity to be part of this Congress and look at the finds from excavations, which are extremely important to try to find maybe places of origin for particular items, but also to see the beautiful displays from museum collections such as ours, and again try to find out more information about the details and the specialists, and especially how they approach this topic, and to help us find the best approach to clearly to emphasize this part of our collection. From mythology and from daily life, we have only a few depictions, because as you have seen and I have stated, most of them are depictions of gods, but we have one gem that depicts the myth of Leda in the Swan, which is again not very commonly found in all sorts of iconography in our region of the empire. We have 2 depictions of sea creatures, especially the hippocampus, and for the ring, which is a massive golden ring with this blue gem, this one in our records is recorded as originating from Constantinople. This is one of the very few pieces that we know some information about its origin, but we believe that it was purchased from another collector that took it from Constantinople and then resold it to our collector here in Bucharest. The military ring and the marriage ring, we are assuming that they are coming from Tomis. Tomis was one of the big port cities in our region. There are indications that it does originate from there, and the military ring is most definitely one that belonged to a male owner and not a female. As for the marriage ring, this is the only one in our collection with the 2 cameos, the couple, the faced couple. We have several others that depict the classical image of the marriage with the 2 joined hands. And here again for the animal and birds, I think I found some in the previous presentation. I think I have seen some very nice analogies for the depictions of the lion. So I think maybe I will definitely keep in contact with our colleagues, because maybe we can identify the origin for some of these, at least for some of these pieces. And as for the other representations, we have the depictions of a pelican, a hunt scene. These are 2 roosters drawing the dolphin, which again we found no analogies for. So it's very difficult to ascertain the meaning of this particular scene, so any help would be most welcome. And the latest piece in our collection is this blue gemstone, the depiction of a dove and a cross, which is a clear symbol of Christianity, but it is probably no later than the 6th century. Somewhere we placed it somewhere between the 4th and the 6th century AD. Again, probably from from the western side of the Black Sea. Although we have to say that there are no, up to the moment for this part of Moesia Inferior and later on Scythia, we have no information of officine that were making gems either with depictions or with inscribing them. The last category that, unfortunately, unlike the other collections from Italy, we have very few inscribed gems. And some of them are not exactly correctly inscribed, which again could lead us to the possibility that some of them are reproductions, and errors in writing the words are on purpose, just in order to separate them from an original piece. The first one is depicts a rooster, which is an iconographical, which in iconography is often found, for instance, in the western part of the Black Sea in Media Inferior on lamps, and of course on other small metal icons. And the inscription, which was interpreted by our epigraphist colleague, just simply says plow. So this could be a clear reference to some sort of an agrarian view and association with this particular gem. The second one is, once we first analyzed it, seems to be made out of glass paste, and the inscription, the retroverse inscription, could be read in a certain manner as a small present. The red gem on the upper right side, oops, I'm sorry. The letters don't seem to make don't make a lot of sense. So this is another indication that either we should, again, of course, continue looking for analogies and see whatever that would lead us, or that this one could be a reproduction. The shape itself is a bit unusual. But the last one is quite clear, though it is retroverse. It references the 4th Ferrata Legion, a legion that was usually stationed in the Eastern empires, in Caesarea, in Syria, and this could be, if it had been found in the Black Sea area, could be a token of someone who was part of this of the legion, a legionnaire or a higher official that took it and just kept wearing it after leaving the region. Or, of course, your guess is as good as mine. The last slides are depicting what we have identified as reproductions. The technique and the details, they don't seem to indicate production during antiquity. Of course, 2 of them are inscribed, but the inscriptions, again, they don't really make a lot of sense. So again, we are sure that they are reproductions. They have been marked as such. Thank you very much, and we are waiting all of your suggestions and inputs, because they will be most helpful to help us in this endeavor that we have started and hope to finalize with success, and just put forward like a new information on collections and identifying origins for some of the pieces.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Dan. There are a couple of comments on the chat that I suggest we will discuss in the discussion time, because we're running out of time now. And next, I'm inviting Zdravko Dimitrov from the National Archaeological Institute in Sofia.
Okay, that's right.
Super.
Okay, dear colleagues, now I'll show you 2 rings, one silver and one gold, from southeastern part of Bulgaria. They are also connected with gemstones, and they are not published yet in our bibliography and our literature. So I think that they have importance for our study exactly about this interesting conference. In the 70s, the Regional Museum of History in Kırjari received 2 rings with embedded gemstones from precious stones. For the time being, they provide only data on glyptics from the Eastern Rhodopes. The first piece of jewelry is a golden ring with the carnelian gemstone set in it, which was found near the village of Celaru. This is a micro-region along the road from Haskovo to Kırjari. Both today in antiquity, this is the direct road connecting the Thracian hinterland with the northern coast of Aegean Sea. The gemstone from the village of Celaru has a altogether elliptic shape, very close to ideal circle. The long diameter of the gemstone is 0.8 centimeter along the height of the image. The long diameter of the gem is, as I told you, 0.8 centimeters, and the short diameter is only 0.7. The gemstone represents an upright female figure wearing a long chiton, covering even the lower part of the body, the legs of the figure. This is an image of Roman goddess Victoria. Various archaeological sites have been localized and studied in the area around this village of Celaru. The settlement in Gradištetu is Roman period, also medieval, but in the settlement in the valley under the fortress also have a late Hellenistic chronology. Also, the colleagues there found a little necropolis for a few mounds from the Roman imperial period. From this site also found a libra, a unit of weight, a trade measure in Hellenistic and Roman periods. Among the finds from the same settlement near Celaru. It has an inscription mentioning the name of village Filtepara. The libra itself was made in famous Syrian port of Laodicea, the present day Latakia on the eastern coast of Mediterranean, and is in line with the weight measure using the eastern provinces of Roman Empire, a libra of a so-called Ionic type. Apart from these specific data about the trade center existing in the region of today's village of Celaru, many coins and whole hordes of coins from Hellenistic and Roman imperial period have been found in that region. Let's take, for instance, the archaeological context from which this gold ring with gemstone originates. This seems to be a large trade center, probably called Filtepara, which must have been surrounded beyond any doubt by impressive villa complexes and some other settlements and villages. There are not many analogs of the image of Victorian Roman trace. Such images have been inherited along the limit zone of the lower Danube, for example, in Nova and Rațiaria, but they are very different from the monuments from Celaru. The only exact parallel was found in the richest main tomb of necropolis of Villa Cetalca, the most representative villa complex in the region of Augusta Traiana. There, Victoria is also standing on the gemstone from the main tomb of the villa complex. In the other provinces of Roman Empire, similar items can be seen in the large collections in Germany, like collections in Kassel, Braunschweig, Hanover, Hamburg, and Berlin. There are a number of similar items also in the British Museum. This ring was studied also as a piece of jewelry in line with the typologies of Henkel, Higgins, and from Ruseva Slukovska regarding the Bulgarian lands. It belongs to the Roman rings decorated with precious stones, which have smooth and decoration-free shoulders to the hoop and a bezel for a gemma, which is separated from the hoop. This type of rings are particularly characteristic and were made in huge quantity in the 3rd century, especially during the region of Severean dynasty. The bezel of the ring from the village of Celaru is quite special. It is biconic and cast separately from the smooth hoop. The plate was additionally shouldered to the hoop of the ring. Also very interesting is the second ring. It's silver artifact and also with embedded gemstone from a precious stone made of carnelian. The image represents god Helios, the Roman variation soul, was carved on the gemstone. He is depicted on a chariot drawn by 4 horses. The silver ring was uncovered by local people while cultivating the lands near the village of Dolno Vojvodino, placed only 20 kilometers south of Haskovo, also on the road from a Thracian plain to the north coast of Aegean Sea. This piece of jewelry meets the eye with the perfectly shaped shoulders of the hoop and the high bezel with the gemi set in it. They are embossed ornament and deeply incised line of both sides of the ring, a highly pronounced semi-precious stones set into a bezel of the ring. The image of Helios, the chariot, and the 4 horses are perfectly visible. All the figures are beautifully engraved on the carnelian, which is the typical orange-red color. Exactly this region of Eastern Rhodopes is rich of the semi-precious stones. Today we have many places and localities of the carnelian and other stones. And finally, about the chronology of these 2 very interesting rings with the precious stones. Chronologically, the 2 pieces of jewelry artifacts date to the Roman imperial period, the Principate. The 2 rings date back to the 2nd, probably beginning of the 3rd century. The first ring was most likely made during the reign of the Severean dynasty. The craftsmanship distinctly suggests the dating, although the iconography of the image of Victoria is strongly influenced by the late Hellenistic patterns, used very successfully during the Augustan period and also in Severean period. These Hellenistic prototypes of the image of Victoria are easily to understand considering the origin of the material. This certainly indicates trading contacts with the eastern provinces of the Roman Empire, especially with Asia Minor and Syria. Many of the engravers in the province of Thrace were also settlers from Asia Minor and Syria. We have evidences, epigraphic evidences for their settlement in the 2nd century after that. The second ring exhibits by far a better craftsmanship, and it could be dated even in the time of the 2nd century. The finds from the village of Pčelarovo and Dolnu Vojvodinu are especially important for the study of the whole microregion of the Eastern Rhodopes during the Roman Imperial era. This is a contact zone between Roman Thrace and North Aegean coast, connecting the low length of the province of Thrace with the mountain regions, yet very rich and busy region of the whole Roman period. And these luxury items from the Eastern Rhodopes most likely belong to the burial complexes near the villas or the settlements like this that I show you from the region of Pčelarovo. It's a very short presentation, but the main purpose of the study is to put in the scientific community these 2 very interesting rings, and to be published probably for the next volumes of the conference from Izmir. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Zdravko. Thank you for your presentation. In the meantime, there was a kind of discussion in the chat, and there was a question by Elisabetta Gadgetti, this is not the Nemesis, but instead of Victoria, the image of. And there was a kind of consensus that it could be Nemesis, but not finished.
Yes, it's also one opportunity to be a Nemesis. I showed in the images of the catalogs from the gemstones, mainly in collections from Germany. And also it should be a Nemesis, not only a Victoria, of course. We have this possibility also.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more comments or questions? We have some time now.
Can I make a comment to Alina?
Yes, please.
But I see nothing. I see no screen. I would ask to Alina, the cameo you showed us with Mark Antone, that has for me some doubts. Could you show it again?
Yes, I'm going to put it on, but it wasn't Mark Antony, it was a Caesar and an Agrippa.
Yeah, Agrippa. Yeah.
Agrippa, yes, I know. It looks a bit suspicious.
It looks so Napoleonic. That's why.
That's a very good observation. That's
why.
Very good observation. Yes. Okay.
And I wanted to tell you, you showed us in the later slides a carnelian with a woman who has her hair bound up, and you were asking already, could that be antique or not? I think this, no.
The first one.
This one, yes, the Agrippa.
Yeah, it looks a little bit, but it also looks like some of the Antonine emperors. Some of them were depicted manner. We have doubts it is Agrippa, actually. It has been published like 30 years ago as Agrippa, but we do have doubts and we question everything.
Yeah, and then in your other slides, there is, go ahead, go ahead.
There was one more presentation.
Go ahead.
I think this one, perhaps this one?
Yes, this one. That is mass production of carnelian.
Aha.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Surely I have dealt a lot of, and Gabriele Tassinari has written something very, very interesting and long about this mass production.
Awesome. I am going to find your published work because this is
if not, I'll give you the literature.
Thank you. This is very helpful.
Thank you. There is one more presentation in this session of Andrzej Biernacki and Elena Klenina from the University of Poznan. And I know that Elena Klenina is going to present the results of the Roman rings with engraved gems from Norway. Hi, Elena.
Hi. Thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for organizers that invite us to take part at this conference and the symposium. The Historical Museum in Sveučilište, Northern Bulgaria, has in its collection 150 ecliptic items, including 139 engraved ring gems. All have been found in Nova, originally a legionary camp gathering the Lower Danube, Limys, and subsequently a Roman and early Byzantine city. They are discoveries made by the inhabitants of Sveučilište during the several decades in the course of their agricultural and viticultural work in the territory of Nova, its necropolis, and Canave, as well as on the bank of the Danube along the legionary camp, most on the surface of the earth. The most outstanding private collection were owned by local citizens Stefan Radoslav and Heracli Makrelis. As early as in the 1920s, Stefan Stefanov, director of Historical Museum in Sveučilište, began acquire large amount of engraved ring gems and other ancient jewelries as loans, gifts, and purchases from private owners. In the 1970s, the museum obtained a Heracli Makrelis collection. Engraved rings, gems, and cameos from Nova are now held by Bulgarian Museum in Sveučilište, Velika Ternova, and Sofia. Some items from collection of the Balacescu are now at the numismatic cabinet of Romanian Academy of Science. So far, no extensive monograph and engraved ring, gems, and cameos from Nova have been published. In 1980, Dimitrova Milcheva put out a report on some engraved gems and rings found in Nova in its vicinity and held by the Archaeological Museum in Sofia. In the paper by the same scholar reports on 42 engraved gems, including 3 mounted in iron rings, constituting a small part of the collection of the Historical Museum in Sveučilište. The profusely illustrated book Roman Jewelry, a collection of the National Archaeological Museum Sofia by Rusiva Slokovska, published in 1991, describes 108 rings, mostly with engraved gems, among them 4 gold ones, 1 silver one, and 1 iron one from Nova. A Polish scholar's contribution includes a report by Nowik on 3 engraved ring gems, all discovered at the large legionary beds, and another paper by the same author with an account of 8 cameos from Nova, as well as 2 publications by Bonkowska-Czerner on 4 engraved ring gems from Nova, and 2 rings, iron rings with gem depicted Mars, and 1 showing an eagle of the legionary and the legionary standards. Under the Ruseva-Slakowska typology of rings with engraved gem from Nova and Tracia, the collection from Nova consists 1 type, type 1, 2, 7, and 9. Type 1 is defined as a Hellenistic Renaissance and its characteristic of the early Empire age, with reliably dated finds from Pompeii. Type 1, here you can see one of the ring, I don't know, here. You can see iron ring with sardonyx gem depicting Zeus Pluto seated on a throne, and another one, it's a rock crystal with image of a rider galloping to the left. And next, in very common presentation of Mars, here you can see 2 variants of this presentation. In carnival gem with Mars stand front, and another one with the same carnival gem, Mars turned to the right. Another presentation, it's a fragment of an iron ring with a jasper gem. And here you can see an eagle with legionary emblems at its sides. And next, it's a fragment of an iron ring with the oval carnival gem, shows Fortuna standing frontally. Next to iron rings with presentation of depicting Eros, and another one, it's depicting Ficus Ramoniles with 2 gods. Both these rings are dated to the 2nd, 3rd century. And second time in Nova presented by variant first. It's a rather massive rings, actually in gold and silver. And types it's defined by Henkel as a form typically of the 3rd century AD. And gold item of the ring without gem, unfortunately, and silver one with a representation of Mercury moving to the left. These both rings could be dated to the late 2nd, middle 3rd century. Next, we have a 7 type, which constitute a characteristic form of the later antiquity rings. 2 types, as you see. First type, it's a gold ring with camea, Sardonyx camei is depicted with Medusa's head. And next, it's a silver ring, variant 2, the silver ring with a gem and presentation of Mars altar. These rings dated to as well to the 3rd century. And last type, not very common at Nova, the type 9. Here you can see double rings, double gold rings with camea. Sardonyx camea of 2 layers, a gray black background and milk white figure in relief of Cupid or Eros, Thanatos seen from the right. And it could be dated to the 3rd, 4th century according to the analogies. And the most common stone in the rings from the collection, collection of the Historical Museum in Sveučilište is carlion. It's in its various shades of the color. There was also market demand for jaspis in its essential color of brick red, yellow, dark green, and very light gray. Gems made of violet, amethyst, and chalcedony is very rare in Nova. The techniques of the execution and the iconographical patterns of the engraved ring gems and cameos from Nova and its vicinity resemble in many respects those of similar items from other provincial centers on the Danube and the Rhine, as well as on the northern coast of the Black Sea. The technique of engraving is a high complex issue. While the stone cutters obviously did not sign the games with their names, the abundance of engraved gems and cameos in Nova warrants a tentative assumption that the city had its own local specialist workshops. Raw semi-precious stones and prefectorally cut gems have been discovered in the city. During the excavation season of the 1985, several jaspers prepared for engraving were encountered, as well as some samples of intermediate products of carnelian without the engraving or with final ellipsoid shape. A number of gems from Nova underwent similar techniques of execution and engraving, and their images share the same simplified and schematic approach, practically regarding the representation of head, hair, and profiles of face. The present authors realize that the issue requires further studies accompanied by interdisciplinary analysis and research. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Andrzej, for your presentation. And now we are in a short discussion session. So please ask your question and make your comments to all the presentations of this session, if there are any other. Yeah, sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
I would just like to say that I'm very grateful for the presentation about the gems at Nove, because I noticed that some of the manner, the rendering of the pieces is similar to some pieces we have in our collection, and we are assuming that ours come from somewhere in southern Romania. I was also talking to another colleague. They are very similar to pieces at Romula, and we.
Okay. While Elena is writing her question in the chat, are there any other comments or questions? I think there's an Angelique Livery wants to ask questions.
Just as it.
Unmute, Angelique. Unmute yourself.
I think that it's part of this collection of the, Alina is maybe from Nove, maybe for the part.
I thought the same actually.
Yeah, in my opinion, maybe. And the double ring, yeah,
and not only from Norway, but in the region.
Yeah, for the territory of this part of the Danube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, to Kalinina, the ring, obviously, what is interesting there is the eros.
Yeah.
Because the shape is usually the shape of an eros on an earring. The one with the torch, which is a funerary motif. That's one thing. I've not seen it on a ring like that, with that shape, which is not oval, which is not round. But
there is indeed.
There are many like that. There are many like that, but they are usually, when you have them in context, they are usually earrings and not finger rings. Anyway, that's what I know. I just also wanted to say to Kalinina and to the other two before you that we have a large collection which we published from Caesarea Maritima in Israel with about 150 new pieces of gemstones and another 100 of finger rings, which we published. And we haven't done a lot about publicizing it, but it's a big book. And almost all your examples appear there. One-to-one, even.
Okay.
Yours and also the lady before, the young lady who is from Romania, I believe. She also has some of that. We also have some of those.
The first one ladies from Croatia.
She was from Croatia? Okay. I'm sorry about...
It's about Siscia, she's from Croatia. Yeah.
Sorry. But yes, there are a lot of stylized, thematically, everything.
I would like to say about this double ring. It's can't to be a ring because we are sure that it was found in the grave.
Yes.
And it was used like a ring, but probably for not for a hand, for the foot.
Yeah,
fingers in the foot. It's not very useful when you're alive, but when you it doesn't matter. It just gift for the Eros Thanatos, maybe for the life of life.